All right, week 6, day 4. The last reading for this week is the Perpetual Motion book about force and motion. And lots of really cool information, if you ask me, about how it all works. Perpetual motion. I would love to make one of those clinking things where you let the ball go and it knocks into each other. I might try to make that when I'm not making videos, which would be way better than making some of this other stuff. So I'm going to read this. Very thirsty bird. By the way, I had a science teacher who had one of these. It is mind-blowing. Have you ever seen a toy drinking bird like this one? Some people call it the perpetual motion machine, but is it really? When the head is down, the material outside of the bird's head absorbs water. A different liquid inside of the head flows down to the bulb. The weight of the liquid of the bulb causes the bird to stand up. As the water evaporates from the material on the head cools, reduces the pressure in the head. The higher pressure in the bulb pushes the liquid to the head, and then the head is heavier than the bulb again, and the head falls, and the bird's back in the drinking position again. The pattern repeats. The drinking bird toy will not keep working unless the water and the heat are added. So if you put this in a freezing room, it would never work. But it says heat from the surrounding air makes the water keep evaporating. So if it doesn't ever go into the water, so what they were saying about the motion is if you remove the cup or put it in a freezing room, obviously you can't peck the ice. But it has to be able to get the beak wet. It would continue as long as those things remain the same. Perpetual motion in space. We cannot build a perpetual motion machine on Earth, so why not try in space? Think about satellites, such as those that monitor weather or carry phone calls. Only in space do they orbit the planet on their own. Even in space, machines cannot avoid friction. There is very little air up where satellites orbit Earth, but there is enough to cause some air resistance. Solar winds, flowing particles from the sun, also act as a force that pushes on an object in space. A satellite gradually slows down over time. Most satellites have small rockets to give them an occasional boost. If a spaceship were launched into space, far away from any planets and stars, it could experience perpetual motion. Fascinating. The pull of gravity between Earth and the Moon has provided energy to keep the Moon in orbit for billions of years. Billions of years. Our planet has been rotating on its axis similar to a gyroscope for billions of years. The Moon orbits Earth once a month. Could this system be called a perpetual motion machine? No. Earth's rotation was originally faster than it is today. Okay, again, I don't understand this. I'm just saying this. How do they know that from such a long time ago? I just think it's fascinating. As the Moon got closer, the force of its gravity pulled on Earth, slowing Earth's rotation. Sure. Earth also pulls on the Moon, showing the Moon's orbit. Even this system loses energy over billions of years. That does not mean it has not kept moving, though. Unless perpetual motion is defined as never changing anything. Whether in space or here on Earth, there has never yet been a working perpetual motion machine, but people perpetually try to design one. I'm confused. What about waves in the ocean? Like, they never stop. There's never not waves. I mean, that doesn't mean that some of them aren't as big, or that's what I'm saying. Like, does perpetual motion, is it defined as something where it has to maintain the same rate? Because clearly they're saying yes, if that's the case with the Moon and the Earth, and it's slowing down, but that doesn't mean it's going to stop. So must have to do with rate. Write your answers on a separate paper. You do not have to do this. but I'm going to read it because I want to know what it says. Use details from the text as evidence. A synonym is a word that has the same meaning as another word. What are two synonyms for perpetual? Yeah, you can look that up. Perpetual, like continual, constant. Choose a machine from this book. Explain why it is not an example of perpetual motion. I would pick the bird because it says right there. It's not perpetual because you have to have heat and water must be added. It doesn't do it on its own. Newton's first law of motion says that an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted on by outside forces. What are three examples of outside forces? Well, air, water, pushing, shoving, friction, gravity. Look at the photo on page 8. Got it. The satellite must use its jets to add energy or it will begin to fall. What? I thought it just said slow down. Explain. What? I didn't read that. Explain how two forces keep the satellite from being in two forces. Well, it says right here that there's very little air up there, but there's enough to create air resistance, and there's also solar winds. These act on forces that push on objects in space. So, okay, fine. Solar winds and, what do you call that? The particles from the sun. A satellite gradually slows down over time. Most satellites have small rockets to give them occasional boosts. It did not say here from falling. Good night, that's important. That would fall on top of you, crush you and kill you. And be like, I don't even know, like a bomb if it's falling from space to the earth. I don't know how intense that would be. Explain why a person who stops pedaling a bicycle on flat ground will gradually come to a stop without using brakes. I feel like this is not like a difficult answer. Explain why a person who stops pedaling, you're going to stop pedaling because you have air resistance. Because your giant body on this little tiny bike with wheels will not continue moving without the force of you pedaling because the air around you, you have resistance. And you're eventually going to stop. Period. You don't have to use brake. Oh, obviously, obviously you're not going to hit anything. It says, without using the brakes. Focus question. Is perpetual motion possible? Write a paragraph explaining what prevents a true perpetual motion machine from being designed. Or write about how you think such a machine could be designed. Yeah. Well, obviously they've told us, is perpetual motion possible? And they keep talking about, well, because there's so many outside forces, people have tried to design one, but, people perpetually try to design one, but it hasn't happened yet. Well, it hasn't happened yet because they can't figure out how to get all the forces to quit acting on it. So if you come up with a way to find a machine that will constantly be in motion, a machine, obviously, yeah, let me know. We'll be billionaires together. I vote a beach house in Hawaii.